Hi everyone. In this video I'm going to be comparing two very closely matched ships. The two ships in question are the Mustang Delta and the Reliant Tana. These ships have been thrown together into the versus ring because of how similar they are to one another. Both of them fall under the same size category and are both classified as light fighters. They have a similar range, their list of components are both identical as to which each ship can be outfitted with, and they have a very similar weapons loadout. They're also both aimed at the civilian market, which makes them a rare breed of non-military based light fighters. And the cost of both of them are within $10 of one another. And also, both ships are considered to be a step up from their starter ship variants. I'm going to start by taking a closer look at the Mustang Delta. The Delta is manufactured by Consolidated Outlands and is their dedicated fighter out of the Mustang series. It's a limited edition ship and is the most heavily armed and armored ship out of all the Mustangs. By default, the Delta has a size 3 turret located under the nose that houses a pair of size 2 M4A laser autocannons. The nose turret is bespoke to the Delta and cannot be removed or swapped out for a single size 3 weapon. It also comes with two size 2 fixed Badger laser repeaters mounted under each wing. And instead of missiles, it comes stock with a pair of Jericho XL rocket pods, each of which are armed with 18 rockets. And for defense is protected by a cavalry-class mass reduction armor. It also boasts that it has a reduced cross-section signature to help even the playing field for when it's going up against other ships. Having all size 2 weapons means, with exception to the rocket pods, that it can run a fully gimbaled or fixed loadout depending on what your preference is. There's a 10-meter difference between the beam of the Tana and the Delta. This makes the Delta much more compact in its size and has the ability to compact its size down even further by folding up its wings. The Reliant Tana is manufactured by Muashi Industrial and Starflight Concern, which is better known as MISC. It's partially based on Xi'an technology, and borrows its unique vertical flight mode from their style of ships. The Reliant series, more specifically the core, was designed by MISC to act as a balanced support for its own hull series, with the Tana being the variant that's the most orientated towards combat. The Tana comes with two size 3 guns mounted onto gimbals that are located on each of the wingtips, and has two fixed size 2 guns located under each of the wings. It also has a missile complement of 16 size 2 missiles, which by default are Strike Force 2s. A major distinguishing factor between the two ships is that the Tana has enough interior space for the pilot to get up and walk around in. Inside the back of the Tana you'll find 2 armor lockers and a gun rack that can hold 3 rifles on it. It also has storage space for 1 SCU's worth of cargo, which may not make it a contender when it comes to cargo hauling, but it does allow the ship to be used for courier missions, or to be able to hold some extra equipment that's been crated up. This gives the ship a lot more flexibility as to what it can do in the verse. It also has a shower-bathroom combo, and 2 bunks so that you and your co-pilot can use the ship as a spot to log off from, and it can be used to satisfy some light survival mechanics. Above all these features is the addition of a co-pilot seat. This allows you to bring another player along for the ride, but doesn't impede your abilities to use the ship if you don't have someone to fly with you. A big question for the Delta is, are rocket pods better than missiles? Or in the case of the Tana, are missiles better than rocket pods? Like with most things in Star Citizen, the reality is that one isn't inherently better than the other. They're just different. On one hand, you have the Delta, which comes with 18 rockets per pod, while the Tana has 16 missiles total. The rocket pods are shot 2 at a time, and can be fired in rapid succession. If you're not careful, you can run out of them very quickly. But you can also pummel a target with damage, particularly if you're facing a stronger enemy that requires the extra firepower to finish them off. You can't swap out the missile racks for the Tana, but you can switch its default loadout for a variety of other different kinds of missiles. This is going to give you more options to choose from during combat. Also, rocket pods fire in a straight trajectory, while missiles have a homing element to them. And once again, missiles can be fooled by countermeasures, while rockets cannot. Whichever one of these two ends up being the better choice for you has more to do with what your personal taste is, and which one of them ends up being a better complement to your playstyle. Well, that's enough about the specifics of each ship. Now let's take a look at what they have in common. The two ships' list of components are both identical in what each ship can be outfitted with. And the two ships suffer from the same pet peeve of mine, which is that by default, they both come with a split loadout, meaning that they have 2 guns that are fixed and 2 that are inherently gimbaled. I generally tend not to like this because it splits your pips up into 2 markers, and if you want to unify them, you have to fix your weapons anyway. I've been normally running with a fixed loadout, in most cases favoring the increased firepower over having a wider range of motion with the guns. But with the new flight model, I've gained an entirely newfound respect for the versatility that using gimbals provides. But, of course, you could always manually swap out the fixed size 2 weapons for each ship and replace them with gimbaled size 1s, so it's not really that big of a deal. Both of these ships are also extremely close to one another with regards to their cost. The Delta is priced at $65, and the Tana's standalone price is $75. And when you're talking about similarities, one thing that you can't ignore is the amazing view that both of these ships provide from the cockpit of the ship. The view from the Mustang is among one of the best in the game, and it could only come in second when compared to something like the Tana, which provides an amazingly open view for not only the pilot, but for the co-pilot as well. The Delta cannot remove its rocket pods in favor of something else, at least not for now. But these weapons are good to have mapped onto the Group 2 category, so that you don't waste them on blind shots. And doing this also allows you to save them for when you do get the enemy locked in your sights. Once you do, you can rapid fire off as many rockets as you need and end up inflicting some real damage on them. There aren't any alternative options for the rocket pods, at least not yet, but there will be in the future. And it'll be interesting to see if the rocket pods will represent a unique hardpoint that allows customization options that are not available to other ships. The Tana's Gilroy Size 3 turret mounts that houses the Size 3 M5A laser autocannons can be swapped out for the Reliant Tashima turret, which holds 2 Size 2 weapons. So why would you do this? Generally, any 2 Size 2 weapons will have a slightly higher DPS than a Size 3 version of that weapon. Like for instance 2 Badgers versus 1 Panther repeater. But the Size 3 gun will generally use less energy, will have a better range, and can sustain its fire for a longer period of time while presenting less of a drain on your coolers. So it's up to the player to decide what they're going to value more, either damage or performance. When comparing flight statistics, we still don't have any metrics on the Tana. But I can use the core Reliant as a close proximity to measure it against the Delta with. And after flying them both side by side, the Tana does feel very similar to the Reliant core in its responsiveness. The Delta is slightly faster and more maneuverable in almost every aspect. Although this lead may not be by a huge amount, even having the slice advantage in combat could mean the difference between a missed shot and a critical hit. The old flight mechanic valued agility over durability in a heavy-handed way, while this new flight model is a bit more lenient in that area, making the distinction less broad. Although in the end, having better maneuverability is still always going to be an advantage. There's something about these ships that goes beyond the numbers and cannot be quantified by sheer statistics and flow graphs, and that's the feel of the ship. Regardless of what's been put down on paper, there's nothing like taking the ship and trying it out under actual battle conditions to see how each ship's going to perform when pitted against the same kind of enemy. I first took the Delta out, and it felt as good as ever. The mass reduction armor does an excellent job soaking up any damage that manages to slip past the shields, and the weapons are strong enough to take on even a military class light fighter. This is especially true when you use the rocket pods to finish them off once their shields have been significantly weakened, and this was just using the default weapons. Next I went in and used the Tana. The first thing I noticed was that I was taking significantly longer to shoot down each enemy, and ended up taking more damage in return, with some hits shearing off an entire section of the wing in a couple of instances. I ended up replacing the default guns with a pair of attrition repeaters and a pair of Badgers, and although your preference may vary, I feel very comfortable using these weapons, and it completely changed the feel of the ship for me. Now armed with 4 rapid-fire repeaters, I was tearing it up again, so the feel of the ship can be very dependent on its loadout. Although I'm not a particular fan of its default loadout, with some careful retooling it can feel just as powerful as the Delta does during combat. Still, the Delta is going to always have the edge when it comes to maneuverability and sustainability due to its better handling and its armor. The Tana may not handle as smoothly or as reliably as the Delta does, but that doesn't mean it isn't responsive or powerful. Although it does represent a much bigger target for the enemy to chip away at, and damage can often result in the loss of an entire wing and nearly half your weapons. The differences between these ships comes down to a matter of being more specialized versus being more utilitarian. The real question you have to ask about the Tana is, does it sacrifice too much combat readiness for that versatility? And consequently, the question with the Delta is, does it gain enough combat readiness in exchange for all of those other qualities that it loses? It has no internal space, it doesn't have room for a co-pilot, it doesn't have the ability to carry cargo, or do any kind of mission outside of combat-related activities. It can't be used to log out from, and it doesn't have the ability to satisfy any of the survival mechanics that are being added into the game. But the Delta does have a distinct advantage in both its maneuverability and in its defenses. What it does to the best of its abilities. If I wanted a single-pilot non-military combat vessel to use as a personal transport, then I'd pick the Delta. It has a higher level of survivability, has a decent default loadout, and it can bring the pain when it wants to. Since this ship is a close-range vessel, a good strategy for it would be to rely on whatever support craft, outpost, or space station that you're currently using as a base to satisfy your character's basic needs. Needs like logging out of the game, eating, showering, and so on. That would make the Delta's lack of all these extra options a non-issue since they're already being taken care of. And it would make its single-minded dedication to being a combat-ready vessel more of a smart move. A good strategy for the Tana would be to take advantage of the fact that the extra features it provides means that it doesn't have to be quite so dependent on an LZ. This allows you to widen your playing field when searching for missions to respond to, and is capable of taking on a wider variety of mission types. But don't stray too far out into the void. If you end up losing a wing out there, it means that you're also going to end up losing nearly half your offensive capabilities and nearly all of your ability to fly within an atmosphere. So in the end, if you value pure fighting ability, and you know that you're going to be playing primarily as a solo pilot, then the Delta comes out on top. And if you were only going to own one ship that ranged around the starter or a slightly higher level, and you wanted to have more of a social gaming experience, then I'd be more inclined to go for the Tana. And that's going to conclude this episode of Versus. Thank you for tuning in, and thanks to everyone who's been liking and subscribing to the channel. Your support means a lot to me. And an extra special thanks goes out to my backers for helping allow me to continue making videos. I'm your host, Law of the West. Thanks for watching, and take care.